The rain fell in soft sheets that day, like the sky itself was weeping for what I'd lost, each drop blurring the edges of a world that no longer made sense. My name is Clara Bennett, and for the last 8 years, I built my life around a man named Daniel, my husband, my quiet harbor, the one who made every storm feel survivable. We met in a little bookstore on a rainy afternoon much like this one. He reached for the same poetry book, and when our fingers brushed, something sparked that never dimmed. We married young, bought a fixer-upper on the edge of town, planted roses that bloomed red every spring. Daniel was a teacher, gentle and steady. I designed children's books from home, painting worlds where love always won. But love, I learned, can be fragile as those petals. Daniel's heart gave out one ordinary Tuesday, 35 years old, no warning, just gone. The funeral was small, held in the old stone church where we'd said our vows. I wore the black dress he hated because it made me look too serious, but I needed the armor. His family sat in the front pew, his parents, Margaret and Richard, faces carved with grief. Richard, a stern retired lawyer, had always treated me like an outsider who'd lucked into their bloodline. Margaret clung to him, dabbing her eyes. I stood alone at the casket, tracing the curve of Daniel's cheek one last time, whispering promises I'd never keep. As the service ended, mourners filed out under gray umbrellas. I lingered, gathering strength to face the reception at our house, the home we'd poured our savings into, the one with the crooked mailbox Daniel insisted on painting blue. Richard approached, his voice low but cutting through the patter of rain. "Clara, a word." I turned, expecting condolences. Instead, his eyes were cold steel. "The property reverts to blood family now. You'll need to vacate within the month." My breath caught. The house, our house. The one we'd chosen together, where we'd planned to raise the children we never had time for. He continued, "Daniel's will leaves everything to us." "It's only right." Margaret nodded beside him, avoiding my gaze. I stood frozen on the church steps, rain soaking through my coat, the betrayal sinking in like ice water. Our home, my sanctuary, our shared dream stripped away in a sentence. But what I didn't know that day, as thunder rumbled in the distance, was that Daniel had left me one final gift, a secret tucked away like a lighthouse in the storm, waiting to guide me through the darkness his family had just plunged me into. The drive home blurred through tears and wipers slashing at the windshield. Our little blue mailbox came into view, and the sight of it, Daniel's silly paint job, now chipped and faded, shattered something inside me. I stumbled through the door, collapsing on the couch where we'd watched countless sunsets, his head on my shoulder. Richard's words echoed, "Reverts to blood family." How could he? Daniel had promised this house was ours forever. We'd scrimped, refinished the floors ourselves, hung the swing on the porch where he'd read to me on summer nights. It wasn't just walls, it was us. I called Margaret that evening, voice trembling. "Please, explain. Daniel would never." She sighed, weary. "It's in the will, Clara. Richard handled everything." "You were never." Official family in his eyes, official. I'd nursed Daniel through fevers, held his hand during job losses, celebrated every tiny victory. I'd become a Bennett in every way that mattered. Yet here they were, erasing me like a smudge on their legacy. Sleep evaded me. I wandered the house, touching his books, his coffee mug still in the sink. Grief twisted with rage. How dare they weaponize his death? The next morning, Richard arrived with papers, his lawyer face firmly in place. "Sign here." 30 days, I stared at the document. Everything, house, savings, even Daniel's vintage car transferred to his parents. My name appeared nowhere. "This can't be real," I whispered. He shrugged. "Daniel updated it last year. Said he wanted to protect the family estate. Protect. From me, the woman who'd loved him without condition." Flashbacks assaulted me. Richard's subtle jabs at holidays, calling me the artist with a smirk. Margaret's sighs when I served store-bought pie. I'd ignored it for Daniel. But this was betrayal on a level that hollowed me out. I spent days in a fog, packing boxes I didn't want to fill. Friends offered couches, but the thought of leaving our home the rosemary bush we'd planted on our anniversary felt like losing Daniel twice. Tears came in waves, then dried into resolve. I wasn't just grieving a husband. I was fighting for the life we'd built. Late one night, sorting through Daniel's desk for insurance papers, my fingers brushed a hidden drawer. Inside, a sealed envelope addressed to me in his handwriting. My heart stuttered. Until everything changed with what I found inside, a truth that would turn their greed to dust and hand me the justice I never dared hope for. The letter trembled in my hands as I slid it open under the glow of his old desk lamp. Daniel's words spilled out. If you're reading this, something happened to me. I love you, Clara, more than these walls, more than anything. The will Richard has is a decoy. The real one is with our lawyer, Ms. Rivera. Everything is yours. I updated it months ago, after Dad pushed too hard. Protect our home. Protect us, enclosed, was a flash drive and a note with Rivera's contact. My tears fell anew, but this time, they carried hope. I called Ms. Rivera at dawn. She confirmed the document Richard waved was outdated, signed before our marriage was even legal in his parents' eyes. The true will, notarized and ironclad, left everything to me: house, accounts, even a trust for the animal shelter we'd volunteered at. Daniel had seen their greed coming. He'd shielded me in silence, just as I'd supported him. Strength surged through me like sunrise after the longest night. I invited Richard and Margaret over under the pretense of discussing terms. They arrived smug, papers in hand. I poured coffee, Daniel's favorite blend, and slid the real will across the table. Richard's face drained of color. This is forged. Ms. Rivera, waiting in the wings, stepped forward with originals. Authenticated and filed. Clara owns everything. Margaret gasped, clutching her pearls. Richard stammered, but blood family, I cut in, voice steady. Daniel chose me as his family. You chose greed? The fallout was swift. They lawyered up, but the courts upheld Daniel's final wishes. Whispers spread through town. The Bennetts, exposed for trying to steal from a grieving widow. Friends who'd stayed neutral now rallied around me. Richard's apologies came in stilted voicemails I never returned. The house stayed mine, roses blooming redder than ever that spring. Some nights, I sit on our porch swing, feeling Daniel's presence in the creak of wood and whisper of wind. Revenge wasn't about their humiliation. It was about honoring the love they tried to erase. Justice unfolded quietly, like petals in dawn light. I kept the home, the memories, the life we dreamed, and in protecting it, I found peace. Betrayal from those who should protect us cuts deepest, but love drew. Fierce love leaves legacies no greed can touch. If you've ever been counted out, remember, the quiet ones often hold the strongest cards. Daniel taught me that. Hold tight to your truth. One day, it will light the way home.